Hello again and welcome to Kabbala Revealed. I'm Tony Koznek. Previously, we learned about the blueprint for reality, the thought of creation, the action of the Creator, the quality of the upper world, what spirituality is. This thought of creation, which is to create a creature and to fill this creature with unbounded delight, is the only reason that anything ever occurs. And everything that appears in our life is as a result of this. It's either it comes from it and it's on its way to the fulfillment of it, whether we can perceive that quality or not. And this is the problem that we have. Because we think in the deepest question that we have about our life and our inability to feel where we are and where we're going comes from the fact that we must ask if the Creator is completely good and only does good, then why is it that we see evil? Why are there bad events? In order to investigate this question, the Kabbalists set for us a boundary on how we should investigate in order to get a real answer and not get confused. Bala Salam tells us that there's a rule in Kabbalah, and that is what cannot be attained cannot be named. What does that mean? The goal that we want to reach is a direct sensation of the Creator, not an idea, not some kind of an intellectualization, because there's no real answer in an intellectualization. You can't feel confident about an idea. You must be able to feel it within you in the same way that you feel where your feet stand or as you look at something that's before you. It must be tangible. Only there is a real change in perception, not in ideas or abstractions. Man cannot really understand the events in his life because man rejects half of all reality. Half of everything that occurs that is considered by him to be bad, man rejects. And that's because of an inner programming that we have, which is the will to receive. That will to receive functions as a guidance system. That is, we're completely controlled by it. And all that it's doing is it's either attracting us to something that we find delightful, that we find pleasure, and that we consider to be good, or we are running away from something that does not give us pleasure, that gives us emptiness. So we flee from that. We are constantly looking only for those things that are considered to be good. So our perception of what the purpose of both of these events are is faulty, because our attention is never on the whole of the picture. It's always only on a small part of the picture, because we're looking at it from within the level of the problem itself. And this is a huge problem for us, because all perception, as we can see just in simple nature, comes only as a result of contrast. We only know cold by its opposite, heat. We only know up when we relate it to down. If we look just at the quality of heat in itself, if there was nothing opposite it, if it had no opposite quality, it would be, in essence, we wouldn't be able to feel anything in it. If there was no movement, no way to measure anything, what could we know about heat? There would be nothing there. There would simply be no sensation. So this comparison between what we consider to be good and why we consider it to be good, and what we experience as bad and why we consider it to be bad, this is the thing that needs to be measured. We need to have something that is not a sliding scale. And it may not seem so to us because we're blinded by this inability to incorporate the greater scope of reality. But all of our evaluation of good and evil from within the will to receive is completely subjective. It's a totally sliding scale. That is, we can say that certain events that we see are considered to be evil, but if you really look at it profoundly, if you look at what your true responses are, and here this is what is meant by only what can be attained can be named. You have to look at the actual experience. Take, for example, the tsunami disaster. There were 400,000 people killed in that disaster. And everybody, if you poll them, will say, this is horrible. The loss of life was terrible. The suffering of others was terrible. It's almost unimaginable, the scope of this, biblical scope of destruction. Evil. But what happens if you happen to be one of the owners of the companies that gets to rebuild the resorts in those areas? It's the best thing that has happened to you in 5 years. So, what did you really experience? Can you say, according to your idea that, oh, I should feel this way about it, and therefore the idea of what's good is this, and the idea of what's bad is this? No, you must go by what you actually feel. If you measure something else, you're measuring something imaginary. Now, sometimes we can see this fact that something that we would first take as a bad experience, we can understand as a good experience when we look at the levels of life below us. If we look at something like a forest fire, and we see a tremendous amount of damage done, we can look at that situation and we can say, well, you know, it was bad for the trees, but in the larger scope of things, what's going to happen is there was a purpose to this. There's going to be a thicker growth. We're going to have, maybe there'll be a more diverse forest, a thicker forest, and the things that were preventing its successful growth are now changed. And the only reason that we can see a disaster as a good thing is because we look at it as a process. We see